I look forward to the end of this video when I get to dig in and enjoy eating every bit of this.
Hello. Today I'm going to make stew. I did a little research, the way I always do when it comes to the recipes that I do. Because I do a lot of vintage recipes. I do a lot of older recipes. I do things that in some cases are becoming forgotten or not used as much. And so what I want to do is just kind of revive old stuff and bring back that understanding that there are some delicious recipes out there. Just because it's old, just because grandma made it, doesn't make it out of date, okay? And this is one of those recipes. So here I go. I study stew. Who made stew? When was stew invented? I'm trying to find this out, and I'm online studying. I want to say this. There are accounts of stew recipes going back to dates predating AD, okay? So in other words, dates that were BC, hundreds of years BC. And it dawned on me that this is not a dish that is decades or centuries old. This is a recipe that is, well, frankly, millennia old. All right, so this predates a lot of nations. It really does. Something that needs to be mentioned is it is such a universally flexible dish. You get to add or take out any part of this dish that you want. And we're going to get into a full list of different stuff that you can use. But what I'm going to give you today is going to be what we have been doing on several of the recipes for this season. And that is recipes that are flexible, recipes that allow you to build on it and to make it your recipe by adding or taking out whatever you want. I give you the base recipe and the reason behind certain things, and then after that, you're off and running. So, we're going to get in the kitchen now. I'll show you the ingredients, and ladies and gentlemen, we're going to make some delicious stew. This is a recipe you're going to enjoy and that I'm sure that you'll keep and use over and over. Let me show you what I've got. Come on. The ingredients we have today are pretty simple. I have here, this is beef. This is a chuck roast. I have also some russet potatoes, carrots, some big, beautiful, sweet onions, and also some bay leaf, tomato, and this is diced tomato in its own juice. Also, some black pepper and salt, and we'll be adding those to taste. A great recipe, but I gotta get busy turning everything into bite-sized pieces. So we are off and running on this recipe. I want you to think about some other ingredients here. There are a lot of options. And I just want to throw out a few to maybe spur you and your imagination to come up with something that allows you to turn this recipe into yours with your own additions. Stuff you can put in there, corn and peas. Okay, some little items like that are really neat. You could add mushrooms. Yeah, that's a good idea. There's just a variety of different things that you can put in this. Let me think here. How about turnip? Try it. You could dice up some turnip and throw it in there. Pearl onions. Hey, that's a neat idea. Let me take a look at my crib notes here. How about some celery? Very simple, celery. Or fennel. Take the stalks of fennel and slice them thin, no more than about an 1/8 inch thick. Throw the fennel in there, folks. There's a lot of other stuff, and I want you to use this as kind of fuel for your imagination to get out there and pick a few new items for your stew to kind of evolve it and turn it into yours. You know, if mushrooms or celery are your favorite item, then definitely you need to add it. Don't be afraid of turning this into yours. There's something you need to remember. We've been putting it all together. How should I say this? The tomato it's very important that you know something about the tomato. The tomato provides a certain acid balance to this dish that make all of the other flavors pop. Without it, the dish kind of falls flat. With that tomato in there, it just jumps, it sparks, and the flavors are fantastic. If you've ever tried it both ways, you would know exactly what I mean, and I have. I've had it both ways, and it's bland and boring and kind of, I don't want it if it doesn't have that tomato base there. But with the tomato there, it's sharp. Now, if you're going to make a really thick one, you need to use tomato paste. And something I need to mention about tomatoes. This is the only thing I'm going to say that you can open up a can and use, and it'll be a good idea. And there's a reason. Any of the tomatoes that are picked in a tomato or on the farm in a tomato patch, anytime that they pick tomatoes that are fully ripe, those do not go to the grocery store. They won't survive the trip. They go immediately to canning. Once they arrive in canning, they get either frozen or canned up in one way or another, or turned into a sauce, and then you buy it off the shelf. Plain and simple. So the ones in the can, the reason they're really sweet is those are the ones that are actually vine ripened, and that's what truly vine ripened tastes like. All right, so it's not something that they've changed the flavor of. That's what tomatoes that are vine ripened taste like. I've done a lot of tomato growing, and I can say they're delicious when they're vine ripened. And the only way you can get them fresh off the shelf, you know, that snippet of vine in the grocery store, that's not vine ripened. Vine ripened means it was still attached to the plant and the plant was growing. It has to ripen that way. You can get them at a farmer's market or a hot house, you know, if it's out of season. So that's the only way you're going to get the truly vine ripened ones, and I wouldn't trust it unless you're allowed to pick them yourself. So just get the canned ones. All right, it's just that simple. Now let's get in there, finish this dish.
Gotta peel these guys. Get all of them peeled and diced. That's very important. Now when you're peeling your potato, these little guys, they're worth their weight in gold. If you don't own one, spend the few dollars to get one. They are fantastic. They make this job so easy, okay? Now, if you're a peel-on kind of guy and you want to leave the peel of the potato on there in the stew, that's fine, you can do that. I don't really prefer it because a lot of times they come off, and then I've got potato peels floating around everywhere, and I don't really like that. I prefer, and this is one of the few times that I can say I prefer my potatoes without the peel. Because I'll do it in the mash and I'll do it on my French fries. But when it comes to stewing, nah, let's make it naked. Now I've got a few bad spots, and whenever you see stuff like this, there's a couple things you can do. The tip on one of these is just perfect for cutting out potato eyes and bad locations, and it'll do that right there. It's just so nice. So you can use it that way, and you'll find these things even better. When it comes to processing the carrot, I'm going to peel them also. I don't really like that outer part on the carrot. Sometimes the tip is a bit rough and I'll remove it. And then also the end where you have the greenery coming out of it, I like to take care of that before I just go ahead and give it a nice quick go over. Now the outside of the carrot it's edible. You can eat it, but you know, just from eating these things raw, I've learned I'm not partial to the outside not being peeled off like this. And I just get in a habit of doing it when I'm cooking also. So you can do it or not, but make sure you at least trim your ends before you cut your carrots. All right? You have a lot of veggies here to take care of. Simple enough. I'm going to start with the simplest and easiest part. That's my carrots. Now the carrot, of course, big on one end, small on the other. If I make all of my cuts, let's say 1/4 of an inch like that, well, that means these little bitty pieces are probably going to cook faster. So I like to make these about that long, about twice as long. And then I will get them shorter as this gets, of course, thicker. All right, so that's kind of how I work my carrots. once you get into the bigger end, those can be about 1/4 inch thick. They don't have to be perfect, okay? This isn't some award competition for slicing. However, that's what you want to do right there. Okay, long one. Look at that. Huh? Now, something I want to mention when it comes to using certain types of knives, like if you've got a knife that has a wide blade like this, do yourself a favor, be safe about how you handle it. If you're holding it by the handle, even if you grip tight, that blade can rotate in your hand. Now, right now I'm gripping really tight, but I'm able to rotate the blade, which shows how dangerous this is. But if I grab it here, I then can no longer rotate that blade, so it won't accidentally spin and come toward my hand. You never want that to happen. Pinch it, be safe, keep the fingertips turned under, and do your cutting in a safe way. Keep that thumb behind, just like that. See there? Nice and simple. Don't let your product get in your way, okay? Meaning, if it starts building up on your board, just take it and put it in the bowl that you have set aside for all of your vegetables, okay? Now, in some recipes, you know, when I'm teaching the setup method, we'll use different bowls for different things because different things go into the cook at different times. In this case, all of the vegetables all go in there at the exact same time, so it's not an issue, all right? And sometimes you'll see me push food off my blade, and normally the safe way to do that is to push it away from the edge, okay? Or just to, you know, shake it off if you can. If you're seeing me do this, look at my finger. It's up, it's away from that edge, it's along the back here where there's not sharp. Okay, so if you see me do that, that's what's really going on there. So don't get too brave about that and try it until you really understand what you're doing with your knife. And remember, it's a knife, it cuts, it's dangerous, okay? Make sure it's sharp. A sharp knife is safe, a dull knife is dangerous. And my video on knife and knife safety explains exactly why. Alright, couple of ways of doing the tater. Number one, just lay it out flat, slice it in half, and then we split it in half lengthwise again. And we're ready to start making cuts that are about roughly bite size. Isn't that nice? Okay, so here we have pieces that aren't too big to bite down on. They're comfortable to eat, and that's what I'm looking for. Of our onion, I don't need all of these. I'm going to use 1.5. What I want to do, I've already removed the outer layers on this, all of the paper layers and any thin layers, okay? I just want to remove that right there so it's kind of out of my way, and it gives me a flat spot to make the onion safe to cut. I need only 1.5 of these, so I'm going to take this one and try to half it in such a way that is as even as possible. I'm going to leave that one. And the same thing here, I want to half it, and then I want to turn it. I want to take each of these halves, we're going to half them, all right? Here, here, here. Now I've still got that root holding everything together. It makes it easy to handle and work on. All right, so I can take each of these, and now I can make my slices. Now if I want to make a little smaller slice on the outer part here, all I have to do is just go in a little bit like that, and then when I slice these, look what happens. The outer ones cut down to a decent size. The inner ones are the size they are, and then on that outer part I had some thicker pieces there where it curved over. this part. So that's something you want to take into account when cutting. But there we have it. It's easy enough to do your onions when you've brought them down in size like this. Now when that gets to this, if you want to do a little of that, you can, and that way you're not wasting any onion. Let's go ahead and get that meat taken care of the same way we did those potatoes. It's 1-inch square dice. Now something I want to mention, I'm using chuck, and if you're doing the same thing, chuck is actually a grouping of muscles, okay? It's the shoulder. And so different muscles do different things to allow the cow to move that front leg in different ways. So you're going to see bands of fat running in between what looks like muscles that are different. You see there how they come apart? You can often pull them apart with your hand. So you see that fat running through there. We can just go ahead and take that right out, just like that. And boom, suddenly I've got this muscle that's separate and into himself. So go ahead and just kind of dissect it that way, or cut it apart, however you want to call it, and we'll get on with cutting up our roast. Now the thing of it is if you got a little fat in the meat that goes into the stew pot, that's not a problem. But too much of it, like this, can be, well, problematic. So I'm going to go ahead and take out any excess that I don't really need. Sometimes, and like here, I've got a piece of silver skin. I want to take that out. Sometimes you just got to sacrifice a little meat to get there. This one was tough. He was not cooperating, okay? Now what's left is workable. So I can turn this into some pretty decent, except for that, there we go, into some pretty decent meat to stew with. Now you'll notice how the grain of the meat runs here to here. Okay, so I need to cut it lengthwise. Don't cut it this way or you're going to have some real chewy meat. It'll be not quite as pleasant for the dining experience. Okay, so I'll split it lengthwise, cutting those pieces shorter, and then I have nice pieces of meat. Now my meat can go directly into my stew pot because it's the very first thing that I'm cooking. Now something I want to mention, this is knife safety again. When you're holding that knife, pinch it up, choke up on it, pinch that blade, and on this, don't do a sawing motion that's short. Keep the fingers curled under, the thumb behind, and make a long stroking motion like so. You see when that meat curls up and rolls off of it? You've done it perfect. And I'm not pushing down. I'm allowing the blade to do what the blade does, all right? Let me cut a piece here. See how it got almost all the way through it? And that's just the weight of the blade, all right? So I'm not fighting this in any way. There we go. I'm going through, I'm just making sure there weren't any pieces that were obnoxious. I knew the first ones were a little big. All right, nice. Okay, I have this ready and I'm going to put it in my pot and get it cooking first. I need a little oil with this, and once it's up and cooking, we get it browned, we then add the vegetables. I have my meat in the pot. I've just turned it on. This is going to come up in temperature and it's going to start cooking off real nice. Just stir it occasionally. It doesn't take a lot of attending. But what we need to do is to get browning all over the meat. And when I get kind of a brown color throughout the entire, or throughout all of the meat, that's when I hit the vegetables and we start the stewing process. All right, you see here how it's getting some browning on the bottom. I'm stirring it for the first time. So as you can see, this is coming along fine. And I want to get it to where all of it has that much what they call browning or gray matter on it, this right here. And that is what we're looking for before we start our veggies. It's all in developing flavors, and this is one of the ways of doing it, but it also tenderizes the meat better later on for, it's just better. It's more tender, it's a good flavor. And folks, do it this way and you'll be happy with your results. Now as you see, there's a lot of liquid in the bottom, so we can't actually get true browning. We can't get searing going on, but we get this color of brown. And what this is not caramelization. This is what they call a Maelard reaction. Okay, and that is where you have reducing sugars and amino acids working against each other, and it's the result of pyrolysis, or the application of heat. That's what's going on there. All right, let's take a look. That meat is now cooked up really nice. Look at all the juices there. Okay, right. That's doing what it's supposed to be doing. And if you notice the release of those juices, again, part of this process is getting that stuff right there, because that's part of the flavor of a genuinely good tasting stew. Okay, I'm ready to get on with this. My meat has turned brown. I have plenty of meat juice and the good flavors thereof. So now what I want to do, without pouring too quickly, get my vegetables down in here. Oh, looky there. And that tomato in its juice. Now I need to get some water in this. I recommend using some hot water, folks, so you don't have as much recovery time. This is extra water. I'm bringing up to top everything. Now that makes right there about 8 cups of water that I put down in this. And if you're looking for a stew that has less juice, or a less juicy stew and more of a thick stew, then I would recommend that you, number one, reduce that from 6 to 4 cups and let it stew slowly that way, and your vegetables are going to release some of their juices and eventually they will be covered by liquid. But also add in some tomato paste, about 6 ounces of tomato paste. If you're wanting that really thick type of stew, do it that way. Reduce the water, add the tomato paste, and boom, you're up and running. So a couple of other things that we want to add to this are our flavorants, which would be the bay leaf and some garlic. So this is going to come up to a boil. When it does, I'll reduce it to a simmer. I need to put my bay leaves and my garlic in there. Now, something I want to say, the garlic, I'm just going to trim off those calloused ends. If there's any other bad spots, I'll trim those off. And then all we have to do is simply crush this garlic, and we have what we need. You don't have to chop it, slice it, or anything of that. You don't have to use a garlic press, none of that. Simply crush, and in the pot it goes. These, as it stews, will just break down and kind of fall apart on you. So you don't have to worry about anything further. And if you're worried about size, well, then split them in half like that. Okay? They'll come apart. You won't even notice them in there. Bay leaf, 1, 2. How about some salt? Okay, I'm going to start with about 1.5 teaspoons. The black pepper, no, not now, because the flavor of it will get lost. If I use it at the end, then the flavor of that black pepper will stand out and it'll be really good tasting. Right now it's just kind of wasting it. There's a medium-high heat that's still underneath my pot. Once the pot comes to a boil, and it doesn't have to be vigorous, just to a light boil, I'll cover it, I'll reduce it to the lowest temperature I can get, and slow simmer this until the vegetables become tender. And once it's that way, and it has cooked for about 1.5 hours to 2 hours, it's then ready. Okay, folks? And sometimes it doesn't even take that long. It really depends on your altitude. The closer to the sea level, the faster it'll cook up. High altitude is going to take you some time. This has come to a boil, which is exactly what I was looking for. Look at that meat. It's coming up there. Yeah. Oh, beautiful. So, all we have to do now is just be patient. Here I have a beautiful pot of stew up and cooking, and as soon as it's ready, which will be about 1.5 hours, maybe 2 hours, then we get to enjoy it. Until then, it's a matter of patience. When it comes to producing a recipe, I like balance in my recipes, and what I look for is often ratios, okay? Not so much fixed amounts. In other words, I don't say I need a 2-pound piece of meat, and to that I will put yada yada. What I'll do is I'll just take what piece of meat I find and build around that. So I have here a 3.4 pound piece of chuck. So what I want is a similar or equivalent amount of diced potato when I'm finished. Now I'm going to be cutting out some fat here so that poundage will come down. I have about 3 pounds of potatoes here. I'll take these and peel them and then dice them out the same way I do this. About a pound of carrot and about 1.5 pounds of onion. Now the onions I have here, this is 2 pounds of onion, so I only need 1.5. I have back here 30 ounces of diced tomatoes in their own juice, and that is something that'll work on this recipe whether you've got a 2 pound or a 3 pound roast. That seems to balance it out. You need that acid from that. We have bay leaf right here, and that's from the bay laurel tree, and I use 1 to 2 of those. And I have pepper to taste, salt to taste, and folks, what you need to know about this is 3 pounds here, 3 pounds here, 1 pound, 1.5 pound, 30 ounces, 2, and to taste. Just that simple. Now let's take a look at this beautiful dish that we've created. This has had 2 hours to simmer, and now it has become a beautiful, beautiful stew. Now I like my stew really soupy, a lot of juice, and that is my favorite. Now I'm going to say this. When you see that bay leaf come poking his little head up like that, ooh, let me get a hold of him. Ouch, ouch. Take that bay leaf out of there. Okay, there's another one in here somewhere. We put 2 in. And so when it surfaces, I'll just pluck it out the same way. I don't want anybody getting that in their bowl and accidentally eating it. What we wanted from that bay leaf was just a little bit of flavor, and it is in the stew right now. So, there we go. It's what I call a good-looking bowl. Now, this is one of my favorite recipes. I've always loved this ever since I was a boy. Mom would make this on pretty much a regular basis. In the winter, we could expect to see vegetable beef stew, and it was always fantastic. So there we have it. Beautiful bowl. And the thing of it is it doesn't hurt to have a garnish for this. So if you want to put some, let's say, some parsley on this, or cilantro, or chopped green onion, make it yours. It's a delicious option. Yeah, this is one of my favorite dishes. First off, potato just turns into mashed potatoes the minute you bite into it. So tender. The meat, buttery soft. Carrots, I've already had some of this. The carrots are beautiful. Robust in flavor, so tender and soft and easy. There's nothing hard to chew here. It's all food that is delicious. I've topped it with a little bit of fresh chopped green onion and some cilantro. So folks, again, it's how you want to mold it and shape it and change it and make it yours. You get to do that. That's a neat part about this recipe. This is, oh man, give me some more. I want to rush the outro to get to this. It's good. Folks, thank you very much for watching this. You're going to enjoy this recipe. It's absolutely delicious. And also, if you would take a look at my channel, that is, well, you're here, Texas Cooking Today. There are a lot of videos there. Take a look at the episode number here. You'll see what I mean. There's a lot of recipes. Now, I've started getting those recipes on my website. That's S.A.Trotter.com. Hey, links right down there in the description. Take a look at that. And please, if you would, enjoy your day in this fantastic tasting stew. I get to enjoy it all. Folks, you have a good day. Thank you for watching. Come to Papa.